Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Well, you are in for a treat. If you listened last week, you know that I interviewed Becky Lou Jackson, an author and a healer, on eating addiction as opposed to food addiction, because eating is a process, it's a behavior, and we are looking at food not as a toxic substance like cocaine is. It is potentially a life-giving substance. Of course, we know that that is true, except if we're eating a lot of junk food, which of course, unfortunately, many people eat junk food as a regular part of their diet, processed food, so-called fast food, which in my view leads to slow death. And so we have been looking at the concept of younger parts of us that have not been able, they haven't had the access and the forum to really heal. And if you look at trauma theory, you know that trauma is created when there is such a horrible event that the mind cannot grasp, the mind cannot get around, the mind cannot process. So it kind of remains stuck in the psyche. And it has its own separate entity, its own separate way of thinking and being. And these parts, in my language, are called exiles. They're exiled parts that we put in the basement of our psyche because they are filled with incredible emotional pain and toxic beliefs. And we disallow them from coming to our consciousness because, frankly, we don't want to be hurt again. And we don't want to be a so-called bothersome person to other people and share our pain. So when people ask us, how are you? We say, fine. So we're not a bother to people. So we shunt off that pain, which creates no opportunity for healing. So what Becky Lou Jackson has come upon from her own personal spiritual work and experience, her own model that she calls self-directed inner family healing. And in last week's show, I introduced to her the concept of the internal family systems model, which is a bona fide therapeutic theory in the latest psychology textbooks, in which I'm certified. So what did they say, Becky? All roads lead to Rome, and the truths are the truths are the truths.
Yeah.
So what I want to just say is that, and if you look, and you also talk about in your book, Becky, the 12-step movement and the adult child movement, which are extremely, extremely important, so that when someone is defined or defines themselves as an inner child, it means that they have been very hurt by some sort of dysfunctional family background of any way. It doesn't have to be alcoholic. And that they have maintained the patterns that enable them to survive. These are protective patterns or defensive behavioral patterns that enable them to survive but have not enabled them to grow. And we have outlived these anachronistic patterns. But when we look at the power of belief, if we still believe certain things are true, if we still believe certain toxic beliefs that we shouldn't speak up because what we have to say is invaluable, we behave in certain ways to further protect ourselves when there is no longer that kind of protection required. Because hopefully we have put ourselves into more nurturing environments where people would listen to us and would see that what we have to say is valuable. But remaining stuck in certain toxic beliefs with the concomitant emotion, painful emotions that go with that, leaves us stuck and really underliving, not really living our best lives. How would you respond to that?
In commenting on the previous show, when you said, I wouldn't want my 5-year-old sticky hands on the steering wheel, what I tell people is, you can have a 5-year-old, you don't have to be the 5-year-old.
Right.
You can have a 15-year-old, you don't have to be the 15-year-old. And part of the Seeking, Finding, Healing book, I talk about one of the benefits is we get to learn how to be a healthy boundary-setting parent for our inner family. And I think that concept is so important because I can hear my 5-year-old. And I can respond to her, but I don't let her respond to the outside stimuli. I can hear my 15-year-old, and sometimes she says, they're an idiot. I don't say that out loud because that's her rebellion posture sometimes. But I can honor that she really cares about people not being treated well. I think it is our teenager, young adults who made the march from Florida to Washington, D.C. after the shooting on campus. They're the ones who marched all the way up there.
Yes.
They're the ones that, in the Vietnam War, it was the youth who said, we need a better justice system than the one we've got. So I think my teenager has that interest in justice and, acceptance and no racism, etc. But I don't let her say it the way she would like to say it. I'll phrase things a little more diplomatic. So I listen to them. I let them be. They are now, in my opinion, they're now a healthy 5-year-old and a healthy 15-year-old. But the truth is they trust me as their mom to give them the life they deserve. So that healing is, in my opinion, nothing short of miraculous. There is not an internal war going on anymore. We are a united family.
It is miraculous and so beautifully said, Becky Lou. I like how you distinguish that about I listen to her and I want her to speak to me, but I cannot allow her to speak to people in the external world because she's 5. And she looks like an adult, so people will take her seriously, and they will get very insulted. They won't say, "Oh, that's just a little 5-year-old talking." They'll say, "That's Becky Lou Jackson or Duffy Spencer talking," and get her out of here. So, because I think when people are in early healing or even later healing or recovery, there's a lot of confusion about, I'm supposed to be true to myself and I'm supposed to be authentic, right? I'm supposed to tell my truth and this is my truth and I think you are a blankety blank and that's my truth. Yeah. That's my honesty. And so I always distinguish with my clients between behavior modification, how will you behave, versus what is your inner life and what is your inner healing and where is your inner venting and where is your inner anger and rage, and give yourself carte blanche in my healing presence where I do not judge you. I do not judge you, but I do set boundaries. And I like so much how you said that, the healthy boundary setting parent. I love you, I hear you, but I will not allow you to eat certain things that are destructive to your body. I will stop you. I will ask if I can hug you, if we can communicate, because I don't believe it's really the ice cream sundae that you want. I think you really want my attention or a hug or someone else's attention, something. But the nature of the false need, Becky, as you know from your being an eating addiction expert, is that it feels like it's so true. right? I really have to have that ice cream or that cocaine. It's
Well, I
that
really
I
try to
need.
help people change their language. An example I often use with clients that actually came from a client is she called for her appointment and said, I didn't want to keep the appointment today. I just wanted to order 2 pizzas and close the drapes. And I said, let me give you another way of saying that. I heard the addiction chatter tell me, don't make the appointment. Just order 2 pizzas and close the drapes. But I want recovery, so I'm calling.
Right.
Just the separation, working with addicts to help them understand addictions actually talk to us as well. It's one of the unique components, in my opinion, of addictions, where with schizophrenia, the voices that you hear, you think they're somebody else. Like in A Beautiful Mind, he thought they were someone else. With addictions, it talks to us in our voice and we think it's us. But learning how to identify the addiction chatter, and I give people, the tormentor addiction voice, the comforter addiction voice, the minimizer addiction voice, the dieter voice. Those are the ones that are probably the most prominent in how we hear them. Once people have an awareness of being an observer of the chatter, it opens the door to them now realizing that the 5-year-old may have created that dependency on the addiction for the ice cream sundae because they did not get their needs met. The 15-year-old may have acquired a dependency on staying thin under all costs because they didn't get their needs met otherwise. And, and living in a society, I call it the bigotry of looksism.
Oh, yes.
Where if you can compete in that world, you're the winner. And to start to help them, the recovering person, identify not only the addiction voices from observing, but now start to observe the younger selves that were dependent on aspects of the addiction, and helping the younger selves break those dependencies so that they no longer yearn for any aspect of the addiction. They only yearn to be that united inner family. So from the eating addiction path or the any addiction recovery path, so powerful to be an observer of that inner chatter, and it opens the door to the inner family healing. With the newest book, I'm trying to help people who aren't necessarily on an addiction path, recovery path, but becoming that observer, because for most of us, we have upset, hurt, bruises throughout our younger ages. But I have found that sometimes the woman who lost a baby at 38 has as much frozen pain around that as, a 5-year-old's pain. So helping any age that is younger than your current age with an invitation to bring their wound, their hurt, their pain to you, the stable mom, the stable guide of the family, is so important.
I'm your mom, and I want you to trust me, and I am going to behave in a trustworthy way. And how can a person begin to trust themselves enough to, and as you put it, I am not perfect. I am committed to being present to you when your pain comes up, and listen to you and give you what you're telling me you need and intuiting what you need. So many of my clients will say, I can't trust myself that I will do that. So where do you go from that point?
I do think that the beginning part of this book, the Seeking, Finding, Healing book, is all work around the foundation piece to where we are committed to being a parent that they can trust. And one of the exercises in there, as you know, I talk a lot about writing exercises, and this is one of the writing exercises. It's called topic inventories. Yes. And I have people break it down into 3 chunks. And that is, what are the influences around that topic? So take parenting, that's the one I always have people start with. What are the influences around that topic that came your way growing up? And that would be family, extended family, the media, campuses that you were on. And then I say, okay, we're now going to look at the second chunk, which is, how did you live? What would you say the beliefs were of yourself if we watched a videotape, no sound on, just how you live, not what you said, of your 20s and 30s? Those are the beliefs you adopted, made up, unconsciously usually, or rebelled against the earlier influences. The third chunk is where the freedom comes. The third chunk is, what would my God want me to believe about that topic? And what is the spiritual truth about that topic? So when we start to write on in this pattern of taking a topic like parenting and put it into those three chunks, we have identified old ideas, and we have identified a replacement, new spiritually sound beliefs. And hopefully we've identified the patterns that reflect the old idea, and also try to design patterns that reflect the new beliefs. So when we take parenting, self-care, family, commitment, love, sex, money, success, etc., all of the things humans care about, and we start to uncover those old beliefs about the topics at the same time we're articulating the replacement beliefs, we have internalized a wisdom that is the stabilizing force for starting to be the parent that those younger selves can trust. We are building the integrity day by day to be the parent those younger selves yearn for.
Beautiful.
They're always watching, they're always listening.
Oh, yes. And very often they don't know how old we are. They don't know that we're really there. And I always explain to my clients, imagine if you were that age, 5 years old, and you had you there, the wiser, centered you, nurturing you. What would that be like? Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you can take her or him out of that environment, because the truth is that environment is gone. That environment is no more. And here's the new environment. You now have a loving, caring, attentive, aware parent who is also safe in their boundary setting, and who will gently, you know what they say, and everything is about healthy parenting, what we learned today about it. You divert the child. If the child is doing something that is not going to help them, it might be dangerous, you don't harshly say, you stupid thing, how can you play on that edge? You say, oh, come over here, I want to show you something. But so many parents don't distinguish between discipline and punishment. And unfortunately, they've learned the punishment model, which is where the parent acts out their emotions and yells at the child, labels the child, punishes the child, makes the child wrong or bad, as opposed to discipline, which is, oh, okay, you were so eager chasing after that ball that you forgot not to run into the street. So let's play inside today, and tomorrow you might be able to try again and remember that lesson.
I know that in the book, I have comments from people who have used my inner family model through the years. And as you were talking, one of the stories popped to mind. And a client that I had who had a 17-year-old daughter, and then I think a 10 and a 7-year-old. And she said by doing this work, she realized her teenager was parenting her teenager, her outer teenager. And she said, this changed everything. I'm now parenting from an adult perspective with adult tools, instead of being at war with my 17-year-old at war with her 17-year-old. And I love that one, because it changes the way we do parent our outer children when we learn to parent our inner children in such a kind, compassionate way. It changes everything.
That's a good distinction, that our physical children, whether they're biological or not, are called our outer children versus our inner children. I love that. really, really good. And, the teenager thinks they're wise. And they're really not. They're sophomoric, and the word sophomore comes from wise fool. And so teenagers are sophomoric. And, right, they think they know, but they don't. They don't really know.
But you know what I have found? I really quite like my teenager.
Oh, okay, good.
She has courage that a lot of my adults don't necessarily have. She has a tenaciousness. She has hope that things can change and get better. That a lot of times we find older, as we age, that we lose that. So I love that. That's what she, as a healthy teenager inside of me, she brings that to the table. So I don't know, quite like her.
I love that distinction, Becky Lou. And yeah, because as you talked about, the teenagers are very, I think it was in the last show you talked about how, maybe this show, the idea of social justice and how much the teenagers have actually helped with the whole climate crisis situation, how important they are. And so before they're not so over socialized and over conforming to meet society's rules to get that opportunity for that golden ticket, that passport into financial stability and that sort of thing. So I believe there's healthy rebellion and unhealthy rebellion. Unhealthy being just automatically saying no to anything and everything, and healthy rebellion being, I don't like this, and let me figure out how to deal with this without hurting myself unduly or hurting other people unduly.
And that is what the inner family healing model, I think, can give us, which my 15-year-old did not have behavior that I could be proud of. But she has healed to the point to where I love that she now has healthy teenager hope, healthy teenager courage,
beautiful,
healthy teenager tenaciousness. And that, it sounds odd, but mature isn't the right word, but they evolve into the healthy version of whatever age they are. And that is a value to all of us. The 5-year-old has learned how to play.
Oh, yeah.
The 8-year-old has learned the wonder of learning. The 15-year-old has that hope and tenaciousness. When they were all kind of crippled by their trauma, none of that could have come forward. And that's why the inner family healing gives us this very robust inner world of healthy aspects of ourselves.
Yes. So in my belief system, I concur. I use slightly different language, but that as these parts heal, as they are seen and heard, they have a chance to tell their story. They are given all the nurture that they need right now in present time, that they either choose to grow up or they choose to stay the age they are, only the healthy version, that they come into their rightful healthy roles, as you say, the playful 5-year-old, the robust teenager, all of this. And I'm remembering when I was a very lonely child, both my parents were alcoholic. There was violence in my home. It was not a safe place to be. And I would spend my allowance on chocolate bars. And I would, that time between the end of school and dinner, my two sisters were both younger and closer with each other. So it was a 2 and a 1 situation in a triangle. And that's how I would comfort myself between school and dinner, by eating chocolate bars. And that little girl, I don't know what else she would have done at the time. She didn't know how to access hugs or understanding or telling the truth because she was already learning shame. And so when I dealt with compulsive eating for decades, up until, I say, the last few years, I pictured this part of me as being literally an eating machine. She would, you know how you take a typewriter, somewhere between a corn on the cob, I guess going to a corn on the cob like a typewriter where you go, and all she is biting and teeth, gripping, white knuckle grip onto that corn cob. And now I picture her frolicking in the meadow. She is so happy playing in the sunlight and the sunshine, the grasses, the breezes, all of it. And she is no longer all mouth, all taking in out of anger, because there's angry eating. And they talk about, oh, do I want to eat crunchy, salty, hard, soft, sweet? Where is the angry eating? And for females especially, you're supposed to internalize that anger and not express it. And as a result, females have higher rates of depression than males do. So we have just a moment or two left. Becky Lou Jackson, let me tell everyone again. Seeking, Finding, Healing, the complete guide to self-directed inner family healing. Becky Lou Jackson, Jackson, and you have a new book coming out. And this book is already giving many, many wonderful writing exercises, visualizing, meditating, to help access those parts of yourself that are in frozen pain, that need to be thawed out by your precious love, that you are capable, so capable of giving them. And by having what's called corrective inner parenting, healthy self-attachment, in the therapy psychology field, Becky, there's so much information now on attachment, adult attachment and healthy new self-attachment. What we used to call self-love and self-esteem building, changed some of the wording, but that's what you're about. That's what you're talking about.
Thank you. You have been just a marvelous interviewer. I really appreciate your time.
So, Dieting a Dry Drunk, and give the other books again, please.
And there's a companion worksheet, so Dieting a Dry Drunk, the workbook, and then the Becky L. Jackson Eating Addiction Recovery Model. And then my newest one, which you had me on today to talk about, was Seeking, Finding, Healing, the Complete Guide to Self-Directed Inner Family Healing. So thank you for highlighting all my books.
Oh, my pleasure. I want the world to learn from you. Thank you again, Becky Lou Jackson. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.